Now here we have a major risk factor which is emerging. Traditional planning is now being shown to have larger uncertainty, and climate change, which is already being shown to have a major impact in terms of more extreme, it appears more extremes, but we also have an issue that evidence-based policy is very difficult in an area where we actually have no evidence. We only have models. And it's going to take 30 years. How do we plan? How do we make accommodation for this in an area which is in any way sees the biggest extremes? How are we going to cope with even more extremes? Arjun, first of all, in terms of policy and framework, and then I'll ask Auguste in terms of practical management.
Thanks, David. I think, as you yourself said, policy is going to be hard to frame, particularly when the knowledge base is so thin and where uncertainty really plagues us from the word go. I was at a conference in Seoul about 10 days ago. It's the Green Korea 2010 conference, and Korea, as you probably know, is perhaps the only country in Asia, certainly, and maybe the only country in the world which has actually enacted a green growth law 3 years ago and has actually committed budget up to 2% of its GDP, which currently amounts to about 87 billion US dollars, to green growth projects and green growth programs. So green growth is not just a matter of policy in that country, it's an act of law of the Korean Parliament. And you have a Presidential Commission on Green Growth which is actually running the green program in Korea. Now, K-Water, coming to our business very quickly, K-Water, as you know, is the water agency in Korea for the management of the country's water resources. And K-Water is now experimenting with green technologies to ensure that water quality, which of course Korea has succeeded in amazing ways, as well as water supply and hygiene sanitation are tackled on a green footing. Now this requires a whole range of institutional, economic and financial measures which governments today are analyzing in terms of trade-offs that you just mentioned. You've got to have a clear understanding of the political, economic and in some cases social trade-offs of these measures. Take, for example, in the field of irrigated agriculture, if you were to introduce a solution called no-till farming, which will actually save you 15% of water in irrigated agriculture, you would think that that's an attractive way to grow, to go in terms of securing the water savings that you're looking for. But no-till farming actually sees a dip in production, agricultural production, for the first 2 years that you enforce this measure. And no farmer, and certainly no farmer in Asia, would want to have a drop in income for whatever period, and in this case particularly 2 years. So what are we looking at? We are really looking at, as a very simple first step, a government policy which says, all right, I am very keen to introduce no-till farming in a particular irrigation command area which is served by a public irrigation scheme, but I really want to explore this because there are going to be cost implications, there are going to be trade-offs that I need to be convinced about and I can manage. And therefore, if you are willing to top up or subsidize the drop in income which you're going to be faced with for the first 2 years, and then you're going to see that the period after that is going to be a period where you're going to make much more by way of return, and the economic return on water saved, then maybe you will say that this is a solution that we need to implement as a consequence of climate growth impacts on irrigated agriculture. So these are the kinds of solutions that I think governments are currently grappling with. And I would commend to you another Korean initiative, which is the Global Green Growth Institute, which is being tasked, it's been established 3 months ago. It has been tasked exactly with this kind of a mandate to explore policy options that governments across Asia might be willing to adopt to manage the climate change impacts on water resources.
Thank you, Arjun. And it's really interesting to see how the environment is coming back into the solutions. And the governor of Shiga Prefecture, of course, has now said, we are in fact going to put on hold all the major infrastructure until we have got a green solution for flash flooding. And that's very interesting. But now, as the guy on the ground who puts these things, you have the risks, you have the engineering design, and you have, of course, liability. How does it work?
Well, first, obviously, I mean, the political leadership, as Arjun mentioned, is essential, and that vision is essential. But as you say, being the guy on the ground, a basic engineer, I've got to say, I mean, efficiency in management is definitely something that has to be part of the solution, especially when you've got already infrastructure, so that these infrastructure are well in place. And very often this is about the underground infrastructure, the pipe, whether that's the distribution pipe so that they do not leak, or the collection pipe and network so that also they do not leak and they work efficiently. So there's often a lot to do in terms of driving up the efficiency, and I think that's definitely where you need to start. Again, when you've got infrastructure, but also when you start planning to develop this infrastructure. And again, for instance, in places like Shenzhen or Shanghai, this is why the Chinese have asked companies such as Veolia to come and work with them so that they can, from the start, plan and develop things in the right manner. Then I think definitely given the growing challenges, whether that come from climate change or simply from population growth, we will have to think out of the box. We'll have to come with different and smarter solutions. When you talk about storm management, I've been in the US for the past 2 years. And in the past 2 years, in cities we are operating, I've seen several times 50-year rain events, 100-year rain events. So when I see that every 2 years, I start to be concerned. So managing properly the pipe is one thing, developing the infrastructure is another thing, but you've got to come with new solutions. Reintroduce wetlands. You know, some of the different approaches that you can develop is absolutely essential, and that's something that we will have to take more into account. At the end of the day, it's about not wasting water, not polluting water, and reclaiming more water, as we've seen in Singapore. And for that, you need to get more water aware. You need both people, but also elected officials to be more water aware, to be more aware of the impact of the activities we are having, I mean the impact that these activities have on the water resource, so that we can manage them properly. This is why, I mean, recently we have introduced this water impact index, trying to give a metric that decision maker can use to assess what are the impact of certain activities on water resources. And I hope that this will be a way to lead people to be more aware, more conscious of what they are doing and what can be the right decision for a sustainable water resource management.
Thank you.